Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 2021 Halfords Formula Alfa International Championship for round 9 here at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, USA. Missed qualifying, unfortunately, due to some technical issues on our half. We can, however, tell you that it is Colin Keneath from Matt Daly in the front row, Andrew Whitehead and Will Inglis in the second row, and George Battersby on the first set of the third row. Looked like a fairly standard qualifying from our perspective. All of the drivers out on hard tyres, apart from John Baker down in 13th and Paul Millman down in, or maybe not Paul Millman, sorry, John Baker in 13th on the medium tyres. So maybe trying something interesting there. About 45 seconds to the start now. I am, of course, Lewis. Not normally my voice at the start of this race. Unfortunately, Reeve is struggling with some illness today, so we'll be.
Yes, my voice is on strike, so I'll try my best to kind of bring in a little bit of info where and when I can, but it might be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, so you've got my voice today as we're here for a slightly reduced quality stream, unfortunately, due to some more technical issues.
Yes, actually on the portable streaming setup has been interesting. Some very last minute setup changes had to be made, but we are pretty much ready to go now.
Yeah, it's 10 seconds now until lights out. We get ready for the off. Drivers building the revs. As the lights come up on the gantry, 6 red lights up, and we are underway there. A bit of a long hold as Colin Keneath gets away well. Matt Daly doing well as well.
George has a very good launch there.
George, a very good launch, as well as Andrew Whitehead, I believe, or Will Inglis, that is, from P5. Going into turn 1 now, the big long sweep. Looking at the inside, potentially, Matt Daly gets ahead from Colin Keneath into turn 1 there. Although he's got to go all the way around the outside, try and hang it. Colin Keneath looks as though he's going to wall that off relatively well. This could be an interesting battle to start off with. It looks like there was some contact at the back there, but hopefully nothing too serious, as they file through pretty much in qualifying order there. Relatively well behaved across the start there, all in.
Yeah, it looks like Colin was able to get the switch back on Matt Daly on the exit of turn 2. That's kept him at bay for a little bit. The gap's building a little bit, but those two, as you say, are just kind of running away already. Nearly a second gap just in the first sector.
Yeah, the first sector here at Circuit in the Americas, for those of you familiar with it, is so much based on carrying momentum through those twisty corners, braking as little as possible as they come out onto the long run now down towards turn 12. And look,
someone's gone round
there. Look, I think that's Alex Smith and Will Harper.
Will Inglis
that's gone round there. That's not going to be good for his race start. A very good qualifying position, but unfortunately it looks as though he's going to be having
and we've missed, actually, Matt Daly's been able to get past Colin Keneath as they head down towards turn 12.
Yeah, looking like the slipstream's doing a lot for these cars here. Obviously, they're going to be looking to get as much top speed as possible. Doing well on the brakes there to get it slowed down. Colin Keneath now with the work to do as Matt Daly takes the lead and tries to build a gap.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's some type of incident or mistake between those two at the top there, because you see Andrew Whitehead has closed in fairly substantially. He's only about 7 tenths between them. Once again, he's right in that fight all of a sudden for the lead. Yeah,
absolutely. That obviously here at Circuit of the Americas there is that motorway between turns 11 and 12, and there will be a lot of slipstreaming opportunity for these guys to get as much of a tow as possible. As it now looks as though, as Andrew Whitehead unfortunately runs wide there, it looks as though we could be seeing some big snap oversteer there. That's not going to help him on the run up the hill into turn 1 at all, as looks as though Andrew Whitehead also had Matt Daly also had a bit of a poor exit, so he looks like he's got away with it as he comes up the hill, braking as late as physically possible into turn 1. 3 at the front there, forming a bit of a train with George Battersby in 4th, trying to catch on to the end of that slipstream train. As we see further down the grid, this is Paul Millman trying to defend from, as there was a bit of a shunt there from behind by the looks of it. Paul Millman trying to defend his very good 8th position from the start, with a Rob Whitney behind him and Guy Swarbrick behind that as well. Looking like a very good midfield battle forming there for those last few points. You see Matt Daly again up in the lead, about half a second gap now, but we've seen on the last lap that all can disappear on the long straightaway. Looks as though there's a change of position. Who's that? Andrew Whitehead back facing the wrong direction, and he's now got to wait, unfortunately, for all of these cars to get past him. That's going to drop him a long way down the order, down towards 11th, now 12th place, I think it is, that he's going to rejoin the track.
Back now.
Yeah, that's really going to scupper his opportunities for some points. He's really going to have to fight for the last few points of the grid there, 10th place. As we see, it looks as though Colin Keneath is not keeping up with Matt Daly in the way that he would like to. That gap's still stretching out towards the second now, getting out to 8. And the brakes there. Colin Keneath obviously very brave on the brakes, getting another 3/10 just in the braking zone. And George Brooke Battersby falling off the back there. It looks as though that gap between him and the lead pack is going to stay relatively large unless anything substantial happens. And is it Alex Smith behind him could be giving him a bit of company as the race wears on. All these drivers obviously looking to, most of these drivers rather, looking to go long on the hard tyres and make it to the end. Alex Smith, by the way, is on the softs. Is on the medium. Sorry, so
the softs will be
the softs
brave.
Be very brave. The medium tyres, the softer of the compounds, is what I was trying to say. Steve Knight there spins and just narrowly avoids Andrew Whitehead. I think that was.
I believe it was on the exit of turn 15 there, where it's all gone wrong for him.
Yeah, obviously it's very tricky for these guys. This circuit is very complicated. It's very complex, very technical. As we see Matt Daly just trying to eke out as much of a lead as possible in this lead battle here. These two drivers look like they are very comfortable following each other for a very long time. Jumping now to third place, George Brooke Battersby with Alex Smith on his pursuit. Obviously, as I said, Alex Smith on the medium tyres. Will those make it to the end of the race? I'm not sure. Knowing the tyre wear of this circuit can be quite high, it looks as though it might be a bit of a brave last-ditch pit stop, potentially.
Maybe, yeah. I think he's going to have to use that advantage in grip that he's got now, and then he'll be on tyre conservation for the rest of the race. But he wants to get this move done as quickly as possible if he is going to be able to do it at all. But it doesn't look like he's got the advantage at the moment. Yeah,
it does not look as though his lap times aren't looking like that much. He's about 7/10 quicker, so there's definitely the potential there, but he's got to make that move stick, and he's got to make it early, otherwise George Brooke Battersby is just going to wait him out, and at that point in time, it becomes Brooke Battersby's game to lose, as we see our leaders now on that very, very long straightaway, upwards of 213 kilometres an hour before getting onto the brakes as much as you can, being as brave as possible, trying not to lock up, and into the twisties again for turns 13, 14, 15. Very, very sharp complex of corners, very easy to get very wrong, and it can ruin a lap and ruin a position if you're not making the right calls.
These two drivers, it doesn't look like there's much changing between them in terms of position, but we can see they're trading purple sectors constantly. Matt Daly with the fastest lap of the race so far with a 2:07 on the hard tyres with a pretty much full fuel load. It's a very nice lap. Colin is gaining. He's got a purple sector 2. Matt Daly is on for another personal best though, so these two are going to be pushing each other to the very end.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt Daly, best lap 2:07.61. Colin Keneath's 2:06.9. So Colin Keneath has just set the new fastest lap of the race so far in his endeavour to chase Matt Daly. But I'm sure Matt Daly will have a response, as is so often the case with these two drivers. Looks as though further down the order, some good laps coming in from Andrew Brammer there as he's behind Will Harper, I believe.
Yes, that is the number P5, Will Harper there. As we see Andrew Brammer just getting a little bit untidy on the exit of turn 1 there. I was just about to say, it's been really nice to watch the progression of Andrew Brammer so far. This is his rookie season. He's been doing an almighty job, and unfortunately, right as I go to say that, he makes a tiny little error that's cost him a few tenths of a second. As we see, Colin Keneath is slowly gaining on Matt Daly, heading through the S's in Sector 1.
It looks as though he could potentially be making a move at the end of the straight. I think it would be very brave to try and make a move into the braking zone before the hairpin of turn 11. No, he thinks better of it, and he said, I'll tuck into the slipstream, enjoy that nice speed boost that I'm going to get all the way down this straight, and maybe have a look into turn 12. I must say, Andrew Brammer's car is possibly the best looking car on the grid.
We've said it a few times before, that kind of Honda-esque livery is brilliant. It's looking like Colin Keneath isn't enjoying the slipstream as much as we've seen some other cars. This is, of course, an open setup championship, and he may have been more aggressive in terms of downforce and paying the sacrifice for that, unfortunately. It doesn't seem to be able to claw back any time compared to Matt down the straights.
Yeah, it looks as though early on that may well have been, when he lost to Colin Keneath, that may well have been an issue with an exit of turn 11, because it doesn't look as though his car, the slipstream is as powerful as we first thought. Not many drivers making massive amounts of time in the slipstream. Obviously, Colin Keneath got that fastest lap from the slipstream, but maybe the setups they're running are a little bit less a little bit less powerful, as we see Andrew Whitehead having a good-looking battle with, I believe this is John Baker. Yeah, these two cars having a great little tussle down here. Very similar-looking liveries. They're going to make it quite difficult to call out as we see the two Alfa livery, or the Alfa Romeo looking sliding all the way around there.
Hang it out. Both brilliant.
Both of them sliding those cars through.
Actually, you know what this is lag.
Yeah, we see the what looks to us like Formula Drift rather than Formula Alpha. Very enjoyable to look at, but unfortunately not quite as
slightly worrying.
Yes, yeah, it would be. I don't think that's the quickest way around this circuit, as Andrew Whitehead ekes out a bit more of a gap over John Baker.
Yeah, let's see. We're not far away from the halfway stage of race 1. Let's see how his progression back through the field goes.
Got a big old gap to Rob Whitney in front of him, as Rob Whitney having a very tidy little race in P7 there. As Colin Keneath still only about 7/8 tenths. He's hovering around that mark. He doesn't look as though he's making much progress into the midfield, into that lead that Matt Daly has of him. Matt Daly obviously probably very happy about that fact, as we see Alex Smith trying to keep Will Harper behind him. Will Harper looks to have a move up the inside. Is he gonna get there? Jumps over the curb. Doesn't look like he's had it, unfortunately.
No, Alex Smith just able to carry a bit more speed through the corner there, and I believe Andrew Whitehead has had another off there. What a shame. His charge back through the field seems to have come to a complete halt.
Yeah, can he keep it ahead of Paul Millman now? I don't know where Paul it looks as though he may have disconnected, unfortunately. So that last points paying position for Andrew Whitehead is not where he wanted to be, but it is points in the championship, and after all, that's more important than a DNF. So let's hope he keeps going and maybe makes a couple of places later on in the race. As we see now, Colin Keneath still 7 or 8 tenths behind Matt Daly. It's looking as though maybe Colin just doesn't have the pace today. Maybe Matt's turned up and thought, you know what, today I'm actually going to... I've seen you doing very well, Colin, this year, and I'm going to show you what I can do as well. Show you what I can do from the front of the pack, as Colin Keneath so often is. Not used to seeing this much of a battle for the lead.
Now they're posting very similar lap times. Colin Keneath, as we've seen on a couple of occasions, is very fast through Sector 2, but seems to be losing out elsewhere in the lap when compared to Matt, who's able to just about keep a comfortable-ish gap to the car behind.
Yeah, this is very, very confident leading from Matt Daly. He's doing incredibly well. So there's a big contact there between Andrew Brammer.
No, I don't think it is.
Andrew Brammer and Will Harper seeming to come together on the straight there. I don't know what's happened there. That's not a usual place to see any kind of...
That will be one for the stewards, I am sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't seem to be any serious damage to either car. Hopefully that's the case. Obviously, very strange looking... Oh, there's a bit of rear wing damage to Andrew Brammer's car there. Very confusing, that. I wonder what's happened there. Yeah, as you can see, that rear wing at a bit of a non-ideal angle, shall we say, for the rest of the race.
Well, for some corners, it might be all right.
Yes, well, there are obviously some. Maybe it's an interesting aero design choice, as we see this battle not getting any closer. Colin Keneath, Matt Daly looking very, very happy in front. Really good to lead the race, to make all of the kind of, you're in control when you're up in the lead there. You're kind of deciding the pace, and it looks as though he's being very comfortable. Been around that 2:07.2 mark for most of this race now. So
he has got a little bit closer though on the exit of turn 15.
Yeah, maybe exits. This is not the best place to.
Exit turn 12. I apologise.
This is not the best place to be closing in. If this is where you're quicker, that's a bit unfortunate, because it's not easy to overtake around this early part of Sector 3, as though he keeps that gap. If you keep that gap all the way into turn 1, maybe you can have a look, maybe into turn 20, the last corner of the track. If he's feeling particularly brave, it looks as though that gap is not going anywhere anytime soon. So will he have an advantage enough to have a nose into turn 1, or will he try and hold on for the rest of the lap, or maybe make it a bit closer as Matt Daly stretches that gap out again, back up to about where it was before? This is some very, very good racing from these two here, and I'm very, very glad as we cross the halfway point of the race that we've seen it for so long, and hopefully we'll see it for the rest of the race as well.
Yeah, it's one of the most impressive things about the drivers, the likes of Colin, is just how quickly and consistently they can throw the car around the circuit for so long. At Silverstone as well, we saw Colin and Andrew enjoying an excellent battle. We see drivers this year be within half a second for so long. The standards are getting better and better. It's brilliant to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to watch drivers who are at the absolute edge of their abilities, but also seem so controlled, seem so able to keep the cars pointing in the right direction and keep it out of each other as well. Because obviously it's so easy to come together and ruin both your races, as we see diving down the hill into turn 11. Such a lot of altitude change at this circuit. It really is a spectacle to watch.
Exercising that little 1.4 multi-air engine, trying to climb those hills and eke out as much speed as possible down the straight. I just want to point out actually that John Baker is doing a very nice job, currently P2 in the AM race. Rob Whitney running P1 there, but those medium tyres, he hasn't shown too many signs of losing out too much pace. I believe there's been contact between a couple of drivers there. I believe it is
Andrew Brammer and Will Harper again, by the looks of it. It looks as though they're coming together.
These two obviously battling earlier on down the straight and really getting their elbows out in this battle for P6.
Yeah, it looks as though there's a little bit of rubbing as racing going on for these guys. It might be that the damage to their cars is just making it a little bit difficult for them to drive, a little bit more complicated, and it's an extra thing to think about when obviously your car isn't going to behave quite as you expect it to. As these two diving through the complicated, twisty part of Sector 3. It's so easy to get one of these corners slightly wrong, and then that's it. That's the back end of your lap ruined. As we see Andrew Whitehead and John Baker having another tussle here. John Baker's doing incredibly well on these medium tyres to keep fighting this late into the race. Really weren't expecting it from these medium tyres to run this well this late on. And I'm sure some of the other drivers have got their eyes on this as well. And maybe they'll decide, actually, I'm going to use the mediums in the second race. Obviously, they get free choice. There's no kind of limitations onto what tyre you can use. So they could be a very interesting, an interesting proposition for the second race.
Yes, it looks like Andrew was able to get a better exit out of turn 11 there, but wasn't able to build up a good enough gap heading into turn 12 to secure P8 for himself there. I'd just like to point out Matt Daly put in a flying lap. Last time round it was a 2:06.5 fastest lap of the race so far, with a fair bit of wear on the tyres. Obviously the fuel load's getting lighter, but even though we'll say they're getting lighter, they're carrying a lot of fuel for this circuit because you're flat out for so much of it. These two posting some incredible lap times. See a little bit of a twitch from Matt Daly as he heads through turn 11. That allows Colin Keefe to get very close into the slipstream, now less than 2/10 separating them as they head towards that braking zone into turn 12. Who will be braver under braking? Colin Keefe moves to the outside line there.
Very, very brave defending from Matt Daly there. It looks as though they come alongside for a little bit. Colin Keefe maybe trying to switch back. Very, very well defended into that braking zone from Matt Daly there. Brave as he can be on the brakes. It just shows how much you need to secure your exit. On the exit of turn 11, you just need a brilliant exit. Colin Keefe gets a little bit slidey on exit of turn 3rd. I believe that was turn 14. And that's just sacrificed a little bit more time, although he is still very, very close behind. Could this be a move into turn 1, perhaps? Setting up in the setup for now. But yeah, very, very well done from Matt Daly there, defending that position right over to the inside of the track for as long as he physically could be. See what's going on slightly further down the field. Looks as though a fairly quiet race for a lot of these guys. Just sort of, as we always tend to see, slotting into their pace quite comfortably. As the Will Harper Andrew Brammer race seems to have
mellowed down,
a little bit. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Mellowed. The gap starting to build slightly between the two of them. So it looks as though we've seen the last of this. Maybe not seen the last of this elbows out race for these two drivers looking to prove themselves very much. Will Harper is I believe an esteemed veteran of the series, yes, and Andrew Brammer a young gun trying to prove his worth early on in his rookie season.
It looks like Matt Daly is on for another flying lap. We'll join that in just a second. But as you were mentioning, yeah, some drivers finding some really nice pace there. As we see Rob Whitney coming along some lapped traffic now, but he's leading that. I'm racing, leading fairly comfortably with John Baker involved in that brilliant battle with Andrew Whitehead. That slowed him down just a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if those medium tyres are starting to fall off. It looks like they are just a little bit. He's posted a 2:13 on his previous lap, so maybe he's starting to suffer the ill effects of that tyre choice.
Yeah, and obviously battling is not going to help at all. Battling is going to just add wear to your tyres. Alex Smith in P4 He's also on the medium tyres, but is still looking at a relatively consistent time as there's more contact by the looks of it between Andrew Brammer and Will Harper. This constant elbows out racing is, we like to see it. It's obviously not clean.
Brought Andrew Whitehead into contention, and unfortunately for Andrew, I'm not sure if he braked to try and avoid Andrew Brammer out in front of him there, but two Andrews don't mix apparently. And it looks like Andrew Whitehead's falling back down the order again. He hasn't looked entirely comfortable at COTA so far this weekend. What a shame for Andrew. Once again, he finds himself trying to climb his way back through the fields as we enter the final stages of this race.
Yeah, these cars obviously very skittish through these corners, and the short wheelbase Formula Alfa chassis does not seem to be enjoying the fast, high G corners. Certainly for Andrew Whitehead, maybe a setup error has just meant that he's just not quite got it. As we see Colin Knief in the slipstream on the run up to turn 1, he can be very, very brave on the brakes here. As he does he look to have a go up the inside? No, doesn't look like it. Matt Daly defends slightly to the inside, defends more aggressively at the mid.
Think about the outside though.
Is he going to have a look at the switchback? Potentially not. Doesn't look as though he's got a good enough exit. Matt Daly doing very well there, although he is coming very, very close now. Less than 0.2 of a second. Now less than 1/10 of a second. He's going to be right up the backside of him, going through the Maggots-Beckett's inspired section of turns 3 to 9 here at COTA. Maybe trying to set up a move into the braking zone for a hairpin. That's realistically his best option, is to maybe make a move later on in the lap rather than trying to sacrifice it now, because it's so easy to get this wrong and you just kind of have to follow the car in front of you. Defensively, that's very ideal for these guys as we come down into the braking zone now. Is he going to have a look? No, he's not. He's going to maybe try and secure a better exit than Matt Daly, and he's very, very close to him. This could be another battle of the brakes as we see the time getting smaller and smaller, that delta. Is it going to get small enough? Matt Daly going to defend in the same vein? Yes, he is. He goes all the way over.
Closer this time round. They defending very aggressively there, but I think he's about to edge out in front.
Yeah, Matt Daly getting very, very defensive. Colin Knief trying to go around the outside, maybe. Very well done again from Matt Daly.
Yeah, just parks the car on the inside line there, and it leaves Colin Knief no options unless he runs himself wide, a la Alonso. Yes. And another Alfa Romeo earlier on Sunday.
Yeah, it's so easy to get defensive driving wrong. You have to be there's a very fine balance to strike between compromising the driver behind you and keeping your lap time up. And it looks as though Matt Daly is doing that incredibly well. Guy Swarbrick is having some connection issues, I believe. As we see, God, this battle is impressive for these guys as we come with 4 minutes to go in this race.
Yeah, you can just see Collins wanting to go too wide through every corner if possible. He's hunting every bit of free tarmac there, and he is trying to keep that slipstream going as long as possible as they start another lap. We've got just a few more laps in this race, and now side by side heading up into turn 1 though. He doesn't have the ideal line though. Is he able to edge out enough? I don't think he is on this occasion.
Yeah, and once again, Matt Daly just doing enough to stop that switchback move. It can be also so powerful around this track, especially through turns 1, 2 and 3. If you can hang it around the outside of turn 2, if you've got the bravery, if you've got the speed, then you get that nice inside line for turn 3, and you're in the driver's seat then. But Matt Daly doing an incredible job of defending that position for the time being. 3 minutes to go in this race. I bet he's begging that time goes down quicker than it is currently.
So is my voice, I must admit. Not that I want to complain, but I just hope that the microphone is actually able to pick me up. I imagine only dogs can hear me at this frequency. But your voice isn't exactly 100% either. So as well as the laptop and the internet connection struggling, and the tyres, everyth's a little bit worn out. It appears.
Yeah, absolutely. As these guys come down again, the lockups there is obviously not going to help your apex speed, your exit speed. As we see once again, Matt Daly getting very, very defensive. Colin Knief almost forcing him to go more defensive there, maybe to try and off-put the line through the corner here at turn 12 here. Maybe just trying to play a bit more of a mind game with him now, as we see the two of them chasing each other across the track to try and get the best turn into turn 13 and 14. And the best opportunity to overtake now is probably going to be maybe turn 1, I guess, for these guys. It's not a very easy track to overtake in these cars, as we see them following each other through the long turn 17 and 18, down, trying to get as much of a gap as possible. Does he have a look? Maybe getting very, very close there into turn 19.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw the delta between these two go above half a second. Some very impressive racing from here. It's also worth mentioning that those medium tyre runners, John Baker and Alex Smith, it looks like their lap times are starting to fall away now. So as we've seen in a couple of rounds, actually, the mediums looking actually like a viable option right up until the very end, but it seems to be a bit of a cliff edge in them, especially in these kind of F1 the circuits that are commonly used in F1. We see they put so much load through the tyres that we really are struggling to have to go with the harder compounds quite frequently.
Yeah, it's obviously a very high load to put through the tyres for these 20-minute sprint races, 25-minute sprint races. So you do have to consider the fact that whilst they are going to last, these tyres do have a very steep cliff, and if you can hold that off for the time being, and for the duration of that race, then fair enough. That's as Reeve says, a very viable option. Or you can stick the hards on and just drive as fast as you can for the 25 minutes. And some of these drivers doing so, some of these drivers opting for a slightly atypical strategy, perhaps.
Be interesting to see how they deal with the lapped traffic. Now, the lapped traffic, I do not believe, I should know this, doesn't have to concede very easily, but it's common courtesy. Our drivers love a bit of fair racing for the lap traffic to move out of the way for the cars coming through, but it could, at this very late stage in the race, we are now on the penultimate lap, and we could see them affect this battle somewhat. As we see, Will Harper is still on the inside there. That slows Matt Daly down. That brings Colin Knief right up onto the gearbox of Matt as they head through turn 12.
Yeah, that's just thrown a massive spanner into the works. That has potentially, looks as though Matt Daly's got it sorted now. But that was, a little bit of a lunge perhaps to into turn 12 to try and throw off the lap traffic, and the lap traffic not moving out of the way as was expected.
Just seen, we missed it on the actual TV there, but it looks like Alex Smith had an off, so maybe those medium tyres are becoming quite difficult to control at this point in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to get very difficult for these guys to keep these medium tyres on the track, especially through those fast corners of Sector 1 and Sector 3, as we see these guys once again right on each other's gearboxes, right on the gearbox, Colin Knief of Matt Daly, as they run up the hill, not close enough this time to have a move. Matt Daly's going to sit comfortably for the last time on this first race. He's going to be quite happy to get his breaking point, as it was probably the first time, I reckon, in the last 3 or 4 laps he's actually been able to drive turn 1 on the ideal racing line. These guys have been so close to each other for that long that we've seen some very compromised lines into braking zones.
Yeah, the temperatures on Colin's car must be soaring.
Yeah, very unhappy little 1.4 multi-air being sat with
multi-air big unhappy, never.
Being sat in the high energy air of Matt Daly's Formula Alfa. See him running down for the last time into turn 11. Will he have a go? No, he's thought better of it. He's a long way to come back from 3/10. Although mid-corner he does look as though he's got a tighter line, a very good exit. He's shaving time out potentially.
No, it looks like his exit wasn't amazing there, not what we've seen usually.
Matt Daly maybe getting a slightly different line from the two of them, so Matt Daly maybe found a line that works for him as the gap starts to come down a little bit more now. Is he going to have a look to the inside for the first time? No,
he thought about it.
He definitely thought about it.
Oh, very close there. He's trying to echo his every move, and they nearly made contact on the final lap.
Yeah, it looked as though they were very, very close to making contact there. I'm surprised they didn't. Very good reactions from Colin Knief. Obviously, Matt Daly getting onto the brakes a bit harder than he was expecting to. So it looks as though this is going to be the order as is as we come through the last section, turns 17 and 18, fast double right-hander, before swinging it all the way back over this track for turn 19. What an amazing race we've had for this round 1.
These two have done an amazing job there. It looks like Colin was thinking about trying to take it on the penultimate corner there, as Matt Daly heads around the final corner there. They are going to be pretty much wheel to wheel.
Look at this run right down to the line there. Well done, Matt Daly, finishing in first position. Colin Knief P2. What an amazing race for these two guys. 25 minutes of wheel-to-wheel action, it must say. It must be said that they've done incredibly well. George Brooke Battersby now coming across the...
sneaky podium from George there.
Very quiet race, very well run for him there as he takes the last spot on the podium. Just being a bit quiet, quiet isn't always bad. He's managed to hold off some competition and bring that bring that car home for a very good podium for him there. Very good result.
Yeah.
Alex Smith coming home, just about managing to coax those medium tyres home, maybe with a bit of an off towards the end there, as he gets very slidey on exit there, coming up towards the line now, crossing the line in for P4. A very, again, as we see him flamboyantly put the car into the wall on the finish there. I don't think he wants to drive an in lap on those tyres. Rob Whitney, Will Harper, and Andrew Brammer coming in for 5th, 6th, and 7th. Very good race. Andrew Whitehead P8 there. Very good race for these two guys. For some of these guys, bit elbows out at times. You know, rubbing his racing and all that. We like to see them right on the limit of the performance of the cars, and maybe going over that limit sometimes. Unfortunately for Will Inglis, not necessarily the race he would have wanted from such a promising grid start. Although it will give him a very good grid start for the second race. And John Baker coming home on the medium tyres. Again, another medium tyre runner who's done very well to get those tyres to run that 25-minute race. I believe that is it for race 1. So thank you very much for joining us for the first half of this race. It's been very enjoyable, and hopefully we'll see more of the same action in race 2. Welcome back, everyone, to round 2 of the AROC racing for this evening at the Circuit of the Americas. We've got 25 seconds to go. Will Inglis, Andrew Whitehead, Andrew Brammer and Will Harper are in your top 4 for this reverse grid round 2. Let's see how these guys get on going into turn 1.
Yeah, Andrew and Will are going to be very interesting.
Yes, after some very, shall we say, interesting antics in race 1 as we see the gantry come up. The first light is on and we get up to 6 red lights ready to start the race. Not as long a hold, I think, for the first race. It looks as though all of them have got away very well. Looks as though maybe Andrew Brammer and Will Harper are going to have a nice little battle. As looks as though all the way on the outside goes Andrew Whitehead. Is he going to stick that? That was a very brave move there on the brakes. Is that Andrew Brammer running wide, perhaps?
Colin's had a great start there. He's already P5.
Yeah, it looks as though Colin Knief coming from quite a long way back for this reverse grid race. Andrew Whitehead, though, doing incredibly well to get his car into the lead as we start the race, and now he's looking to build as much of a gap as possible. As we see Colin Knief already up into 4th place. He is not hanging around in this race 2 reverse grid race.
Yeah, he's behind Alex Smith there as Will Harper looks like he's had an incident on the exit of the S's. He's dropped back down the order, and it's Colin Knief versus Matt Daly now for P4 as they head towards turn 11.
Matt Daly looking like he's got the best of that battle so far for what could very easily become the race lead. As the race wears on. Andrew Whitehead already pulling almost a 1.5 second gap at the front there, so he will probably be looking to get ahead, get clear, and just try and hold the gap as much as he possibly can. As it looks as though everyone's being well behaved for now. Alex Smith, a very good P2 at the moment, as he looks to defend from Will Inglis. Matt Daly having a look potentially at the inside.
Yeah, it's basically a 4-way battle for second now.
Yeah, it looks as though this is going to be a very interesting battle. Colin Knief and Matt Daly, obviously with a pace advantage.
Matt Daly keeps that inside line there, just about boxes off Will Inglis. They make very slight contact there, but as we say, rubbing is racing. That moves Matt up into P3 now, and he fancies his chances with Alex Smith as Will Inglis gets back past Colin Knief. They are switching positions left, right and centre towards the final part of this lap there. Matt Daly having to go off the track there.
Yeah, it looks as though Matt Daly and Colin Knief are going to have to try and get through this traffic as close together as possible. Matt Daly is obviously hoping that he will make the move, and then the car he's overtaken will act as a bit of a roadblock for Colin Knief, at least for a couple of corners as he looks to go out the inside. Made it very clear that's what he's doing into turn 1. On the brakes as late as possible to swing it in. That's a very clean move complete. As it looks as though Colin Knief has gone round. There is contact with Colin Knief and Will Inglis, and that has thrown Colin Knief all the way down to P10 now. That's not what he needed in this race. He's now going to have to fight all the way back from 10th position, as he maybe had a look a bit late, or maybe Will Inglis had a bit of a lunge into turn 1. As it looks as though a bit of a shove there to get P9 off John Baker. He's probably not in a good mood now, so this is going to have to be a bit of a recovery drive from Colin Knief as Matt Daly starts to eat now. He's into P2. He's going to try and start to eat into that 2.8 second gap that Andrew Whitehead has built out at the front. That gap, by the pace of race 1, will only get smaller and smaller. Hopefully Andrew Whitehead will be able to defend for as long as he can. Matt Daly doing very well to dispatch of the traffic early on and get into a point where he can now try and eat into that gap.
Yeah, this lap has delivered some bad news for a couple of drivers there. Obviously, Colin Knief, his race weekend pretty much coming to an end as he climbs his way back through the grid. He's already P8, but it's going to get more difficult as he climbs his way up the order. And Andrew Whitehead obviously didn't want the news that Matt Daly has now been effectively released behind him. And Matt Daly is currently setting 2 purple sectors already, so he's hunting him down as we see Will Harper and John Baker scrapping for that final point scoring position. They're all important as they head down towards turn 15. Is effectively a 3-way battle for this. Actually, Will Inglis obviously suffering but a moment ago as they head round that sweeping right-hander there. Colin Knief getting past the car of Paul Millman there. He's now P7. He's flying his way through the grid. He's actually not lost out on too much time when you think about it. If you look at the interval there, Andrew Whitehead has almost responded to Matt Daly there and has posted a very competitive lap time, kept that gap pretty much as it was a lap ago.
Yeah, both these drivers battling for the lead here on the hard tyres, so we won't expect much in the way of any tyre degradation to come into play. It's just going to be, can Andrew Whitehead go lap for lap with Matt Daly matching in the lap time. Matt Daly, as we saw in race 1, putting some very, very competitive laps in throughout the race as we sweep through sector 1, coming towards the end of sector 1. Not a best for Andrew Whitehead, and a purple sector for Matt Daly. So already in this lap, Matt Daly is closing that gap down as little by little, as we see Colin Knief up into 6th position already, 10 seconds off the lead. It's going to be difficult. We've seen Colin Knief miracles before, but this is going to be one hell of a drive for him if he's going to make something of this. We see Rob Whitney and
this is the battle for the AM race lead here. Paul Millman defending from Rob Whitney as they head through down towards turn 11.
Looks as though Paul Millman maybe got a little bit scared on the brakes there as Rob Whitney gets through. This is, as Reeve said there, the battle for the AM lead. No AM drivers hidden up in the order like they were in race 1. So this is going to be wheel to wheel for those important AM points. As we see, the AM Championship is always up for grabs. 2.4 seconds now. Is that Andrew Whitehead?
That's Andrew Whitehead.
Andrew Whitehead off there at turn 15, I believe.
And that re-entry hasn't helped him at all. He hasn't looked particularly comfortable in race 1. Race 2 looked to be more hopeful, but here we see him dropping down the order now. He's losing positions rather rapidly as cars head past Colin Knief now, ahead of him now, up into P5. Matt Daly in the lead. And that is not the news that Colin Knief wanted. I'm not sure he wanted to be past Andrew Whitehead at this stage in the race. They are now contending with Andrew Brammer. Colin Knief moves up the inside there.
Yeah, very clean move from Colin Knief there, just kind of showing his experience. Although it looks as though Matt
Daly might have had, in all of that, we might have missed a bit of an error for Matt Daly, a very rare error for Matt Daly. That puts Alex Smith in the lead of this race. He's running the medium tyres currently in the lead there. Did we just see someone else having an issue now? I think there's a bit of lag there, but George Battersby now defending from Matt Daly for P2. This race has just turned on its head within the past couple of corners.
Absolutely. Alex Smith now up in the lead. 4.3 seconds the gap. He's going to hope that gap can extend as much as possible on those medium tyres. He's got to extend, otherwise those tyres are going to sleep. As it looks as though Andrew Whitehead making a move on Andrew Brammer there. Andrew on Andrew, as we saw in the last race. Looks as though Andrew Whitehead bit between his teeth, maybe trying to get back to the point where he's happy. Looks as though Matt Daly got the move done on George Battersby as they come out of turn 11 side by side.
Just kept the speed and going around the outside there. It looks like Will English is having a couple of issues further down the grid, but that was a very nice move from Matt Daly there.
Yeah, I think it's Matt Daly has shown his pace here, really shown his colours. He's done had some incredible pace throughout the race, and now showing us some amazing overtaking skills. As George Battersby, very quiet race 1, not so quiet in race 2. He's having to now battle with the mid pack for some very good points.
I don't envy them though, because that mid pack includes Matt Daly, Colin Knief, and Andrew Whitehead, some very experienced and very fast drivers there. George obviously new to the racing this year, but he's certainly shown he has got the skills. As it looks like Colin Knief is thinking about a move around turn 16, turn 17 and turn 18, but really it's one big sweeping right-hander.
Yeah, it looks as though Colin Knief moving to the outside, maybe trying a switch back, perhaps. Hasn't got the wheels for it, as though they both drive off
IndyCar line.
Yes, anyone who has seen any IndyCar racing here at the Circuit of the Americas, big moment for Colin Knief there. That's really not going to help him down this long straight. But yes, anyone who's seen any IndyCar here, the track limits rules seem to have not been printed off for that week as they take every bit of road.
Picked them up.
Yeah, we take every bit of road possible in the IndyCar, and it looks as though those guys maybe just pushing the limits a little bit there, but we'll let them get away with it for the sake of a good race. Colin Knief now being, as we said, unleashed to chase down Matt Daly, as it looks as though Andrew Whitehead and George Battersby will be now the closest battle for this in this top end of the pack. Looks as though Brooke Battersby is keeping him very comfortable in that P4 at the moment, but everything can change. Andrew Whitehead not been particularly happy with his car at the moment, and
Matt Daly just found a lot of time towards the end of sector 1 there. Well, I say right, it's actually in sector 2. Yeah, he's found up just about over a second there. I was actually going to say, as we see, it looks like Andrew White has actually got past George Papastri. So much is going on in this race at this stage. It's great to see, but it looks like Alex Smith on those medium tyres, maybe he's starting to get the first inkling of problems. I was going to say, it looks like the advantage in pace should keep him comfortable right up until towards the end, but maybe he's going to start struggling this early on.
Yeah, I think Alex Smith obviously is out in the lead at the moment. George Battersby and Andrew Whitehead, we see there just having a bit of tussle back and forth between the two of them. Alex Smith, as I was saying, out in the lead. He's just going to kind of hold on. I think if I was in his position right now, I would just be egging my car on as much as possible, trying to find every tenth I can to keep Matt Daly and Colin Keneath behind me. Hopefully they'd catch each other and battle behind me rather than come past me. Because at the moment, Matt Daly is on his own and his own bit of track, just happy to hunt down that gap as we see definite IndyCar lines there. I think that's taking the initiative.
No advantage found there though, so it should be all okay. And it's just some great racing between the two. As you see that train, that podium, kind of running away from them just a little bit as these two are so embroiled within this battle as Andrew White moves up the inside there, trying to box him off. If he gets brave under braking, he should be able to do it, and he does. George played it quite safe there, I would say, and allowed Andrew to just kind of sneak past.
Yeah, maybe hoping to catch onto the back of the lead train, shall we say, if they don't fight and instead try and focus on getting some good laps in. Colin Keneath and Matt Daly are sort of trading purple sectors left and right here. The two of them flying around this track in pursuit of poor Alex Smith in the mediums. As that gap visually has just become so much smaller now.
Yeah, now only half a second. Matt Daly is absolutely flying through the complex of the S's there. And Alex Smith is suffering. See the back end getting a little bit unhappy there on the exit of turn 11.
Yeah, that's going to compromise him all the way down this long straight. He's going to have a lot of time to think about where he's going to be braking for turn 12 as Matt Daly moves in behind. Very defensive line from Alex Smith, taking right over to the left-hand side as he now big sort of blowout wide for Matt Daly as he tries to swing it all the way around the outside perhaps. Doesn't look as though he's got it, or maybe he has got it done there as he moves up the inside for turn 13, and he's got the move done. Will he be able to hold it off? Yes, he will. So Matt Daly up into the lead there, a very well executed overtake.
Very hard fought, and there's actually contact between them. Maybe Alex trying to carry as much pace as he could in order to catch up with him, but that will cause these two to suffer. It's allowed Colin to catch up a little bit, and they've now got some aero damage to deal with.
Yeah, unfortunately there for Alex Smith, it looked as though he just wasn't expecting some of a slightly slower apex speed from Matt Daly. Matt Daly taking an unusual line as it looks as though Alex Smith has blown it all the way around the outside of turn 19. Colin Keneath has got past him, so we're now back at stage where we were in the last race, although this time only 12 minutes to go for these guys to put on a bit of a show for us. Matt Daly and Colin Keneath, 1 and 2. Bit of a bigger gap this time, excuse me, tripping over my words. About a second and a half. Let's see where that can go. Let's see. The fastest lap at the moment belongs to Colin Keneath with a 2:06.8. But as we've seen in race 1, these guys will trade purple sectors all day long.
Yeah, despite all the action, we are still only at the halfway stage in this race. So maybe this can be redemption for Colin. Colin did set the fastest lap on the final lap of the last race. So maybe that move was just about to be made. And this could be his chance to make it now. Just over a second separating them. Matt Daly leading this race. Obviously, he's on for a very good weekend, closing that gap in the championship if he can. But Colin's going to make it very difficult indeed.
Yeah, Colin, obviously, these two are our fastest two drivers at the moment. Just tussling out with each other. That gap is going to ebb and flow and get bigger and smaller, corner by corner. And it looks as though Matt Daly out in P1 is just trying to kind of manage the gap. If he can keep it, he's got a little bit of space to play with. He can afford to let Colin get a little bit close to him, but at the same time doesn't want to let him get too close, lest Colin try and make an overtake. It looks as though Alex Smith down in P3 now is just kind of trying to coax the car around these last few laps. Hopefully he'll be able to do that. Andrew Whitehead looking as though he's hunting down that last podium position after an incident earlier on in the race from the lead. Matt Daly again just sweeping all the way around this the long triple corner. We move on to a very quiet race, to be fair. Will Inglis as he comes through there. Oh, is that Steve Knight going very slowly on the exit of turn 11?
Yes, it is there. We've just seen quite a lot of changes for position further back down the order. I'm not entirely sure what went on there. We didn't see anything major on our... So that is just a line that they are opting to take out, and I quite enjoy that. It looks quite good. Obviously, a little bit of pace to be found out there, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. I'm not sure if we're seeing the leaders do that, actually. They are keeping it within the white lines just about when they can, when they're not side by side. But yeah, that gap staying around kind of the 1 second range.
Yeah, so as I said, Matt Daly's got a bit of gap to play with, as he didn't have last race. Those guys within half a second for so long. Colin Knief is obviously going to try and close that gap down as much as possible. He's going to be using every bit of experience he possibly has, trying to wrangle this car around this track. Any strange lines he's found during testing or qualifying that he can use. As the gap now comes down to about 9/10, it's sort of fluctuating around that second mark. Matt Daly seems to have all weekend had a very good rhythm through 7, 8, and 9, where he's just been able to find a lot of time there on Colin Knief.
Yeah, he's been brilliant through the S's, but I must say on that time round, Colin was kind of there or thereabouts. He wasn't great on that exit. We've seen him struggle a couple of times on that exit. Maybe some differences in setup or whatever causing this behaviour. These two are very well matched drivers. But yeah, they are pretty much toe to toe. But yeah, as you mentioned, Matt, great through that SS section.
Yeah, and that could be a setup choice. That could just be coming from a difference in lines, a difference in bravery, perhaps. I'm not trying to say that Colin isn't being brave enough, but they seem to have obviously come out with different decisions through that corner, through that complex of corners rather, as is so easily recognisable as a bit of a Mickey Mouse of the Maggots Beckett's complex at Silverstone.
It annoys you slightly, that, doesn't it?
It does a little bit. I love it. I love the fact that it's using the best parts from other tracks, but at the same time, it is a little bit seems a little bit cheap. But there we go. As this is Alex Smith and Andrew Whitehead battling for that last podium playing position. Looks as though Andrew Whitehead has got the advantage, as he's going to nose up the inside, perhaps.
Yeah, Alex is going to be struggling on those mediums now. They are pretty much side by side, heading down the start-finish straight.
Those medium tyres seem to do very well in the first race when there wasn't necessarily as much battling going on. But as soon as you start to have to put a load of strain through them, it seems as though the medium tyre starts to fall away very, very quickly. As we see getting all over the exit there. Maybe not quite the fastest line there. Andrew Whitehead swings all the way around the outside of turn 2 and makes the move stick for P3. So Andrew Whitehead, after what was a very good start, followed by a very bad mid-race, is now towards the back end of this race, looking as though he's going to be quite comfortable in that third position, last step on the podium. Hopefully he can avoid any of the incidents, shall we say, of the first race where he lost it a couple of times.
Yes, so far, and I hate to bring the commentator's curse into it, so far it seems to be a reversal of fortunes for Andrew in race 2. That gap still staying around the 1 second mark. Matt Daly posting a purple sector 1 with some nicely aged tyres. Obviously, as I've said, in race 1, lower fuel load though, but yeah, he's doing a nice job to still be lapping at this pace. Both of them are. Absolutely,
these guys trading lap times. Their best laps are within 0.2 of a second of each other. They are so close together that it's so difficult. It must be so frustrating for Colin sitting the same distance behind him. No matter what you try, you are the same distance behind the car in front of you. It's not easy to watch all the time. But they seem to have both made some small errors in sector 2. Neither of them posting a personal best. As we come into the last sector of this lap, about 6 minutes to go, so still a long time to go. Still time for things to go wrong for these guys, and time for things to go right for the other ones. But it looks as though Matt Daly is doing what he did in race 1, just getting into the lead and being very comfortable to hold that lead.
Yeah, it is the mark of a good racing driver to be able to follow for so long. And obviously, you might be getting frustrated, but you don't want to be too under pressure. Obviously, because you'd be throwing away a lot of points at the end of the day. It might not be the victory that everyone sets out to achieve, but he's still taking away a lot of points from this weekend if he can secure himself 2 podiums.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a shame to see him throw away the throw away the opportunity to get two very good second places. Obviously, it's not always a position Colin Knief is particularly used to, the second step of the podium, as we've seen so many times in this championship. He seems to dominate the racing, but Matt Daly, as always, an ever-present threat to that status quo. And in this race, I think COTA has just suited him a little bit more. He is absolutely flying away with it.
Yes, this it makes me slightly reminiscent of the good old days. The first half of 2021, when it was Colin Knief and Matt Daly fighting each other consistently for the championship. These two certainly know how to battle each other. They've got plenty of experience with it. It's not something we've seen as much of in the second half of the year's running, but it's good to see it nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to see the guys at the top having a bit of a battle. Matt Daly in the previous couple of races hasn't necessarily shown his true pace, but it seems as though maybe it's just a circuit that suits him, as he's just he's set the fastest lap, a 2:06.5. So very, very strong lap on medium tyres that have been used aggressively for 20 minutes, and he's gone out and set a 2:06.5. So these two drivers, the top two drivers in the championship standings, I believe, showing everyone why they are in those positions.
Yeah, that gap coming down just a little bit now. It's still not getting... We did see it at about this stage in race 1. We saw it dive under that half a second range and pretty much stay there till the end of the race. That hasn't happened yet. Maybe, as you mentioned, everyone working the tyres so hard to push their way through this reverse grid race.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks as though that gap has come down a long way from where it was when we first saw this battle, starting to heat up a bit. It was about a second and a half. That gap is coming down now, 0.7 of a second.
Colin with a blistering lap there, 2:06.2 at this stage in the race. He is showing his hand towards Matt there.
Can he keep it up? Can he keep up that kind of pace? Potentially not quite to that extent, but can he keep up a kind of a positive or a negative delta on Matt Daly, trying to kind of eat away into that gap and maybe create a similar scenario, but a little bit earlier, obviously, for Colin, trying to make the move right at the death of the race there. He could do with that gap coming down to that sort of size about 3 corners earlier, and giving him the opportunity to make a move at the death. Is Matt Daly planning anything? Is he kind of trying to save a bit of tyre as the gap comes down again? Now 0.6 of a second, so that gap is dwindling for Matt Daly. Maybe the tyres, even the hard tyres, starting to potentially wear out and create some issues.
I think we've just seen some of us. John Baker loses position and Alex Smith spins out. I was about to say, on medium runners there, as we saw in race 1, starting to struggle again with the tyres at this stage, and they must be screaming. Obviously, track temperature's nice and high. That blistering Texan sun here at COTA, and Colin under braking, trying to edge ever closer to Matt Daly as they head through turn 12, less than half a second between them. Is he able to push towards him in sector 3? His car doesn't seem to be blistering down the straight, which is where we would usually see most of the overtakes on this track.
Yeah, those medium tyre runners potentially just because this race was a little bit more wheel to wheel, a little bit more battling involved, struggling a little bit more than they did in race 1. Colin Knief staying now within 0.3 of a second. That gap is back under half a second again. That is what we love to see. We love it when these two get within this kind of car's length distance between each other for the last minute and a half of this race. Unfortunately, we haven't got the 25-minute showcase that we had in race 1. But Colin Knief setting another fastest lap of the race at 2:06.2. Sorry, just extraordinary pace from him. Matt Daly is going to have a bit of defending to do as we see what's probably the penultimate lap of this race. It'll be a case of, can Colin create the environment for him to make an overtake right at the death here.
He's not quite as close as he looked to be in race 1, I don't think, unfortunately for him. We saw in race 1, as he headed down that back straight, he was trying to get side by side with him. He was able to always defend the inside, was Matt though, but he doesn't seem to be quite as fortunate this time round. It could be too little too late once again for Colin.
Yeah, it just looks as though whilst he can get that delta down, he's done very well to take second out of Matt Daly. He hasn't done quite enough this time around. Matt Daly has just kept his head above water and kept his lap times good. Kept that kind of around the 2:06.5 mark he's been at for the last couple of laps. Just done so well to to keep the gap where it is and to keep Colin just sniffing at the back of him and without actually being able to make any moves. We could see, obviously, still got about a lap and a half to go. We could see some last minute overtakes, but I don't necessarily think that the gap is quite big enough, quite small enough for Colin. Unfortunately, this time around, looks as though through the long right hander there, the gap is staying around 0.6 of a second. Matt Daly, hats off to you for being able to keep that gap as it is.
Yeah, once again, a mighty drive from Matt. We did actually follow along with qualifying while we were trying to get the setup working. Matt didn't have, as we've seen from him in this half of the year's running, Matt hasn't been able to be there, unfortunately, for all of the qualifying sessions, but even with those circumstances, he's put in a mighty performance this weekend and will close that gap in the ever-tightening championship once more as we now start the final lap of this race with a 2:06.1 fastest lap for Matt Daly, so he means business.
Yeah, it looks as though right as we come to the death of the race, fuel loads are at their lightest. These hard tyres rather, are probably going to be still relatively switched on. So there's still going to be some grip for these guys to play with, and there's still going to be some room for some lap times to come away. As we see, into the first twisty section of Sector 1. These cars look so good going through those corners. The left, right, so well shot as well, with a really nice camera angle as we see the 2-second gap, 0.2 of a second gap now coming a bit tight. And again, Matt Daly making a really good exit of that section, gaining 0.4 just in that one small section.
Yeah, it looks like Colin is almost trying to carry. I daring criticise or judge Colin Knief's driving because it is excellent. He recently his antics in his if you've been following along, his antics in it is 1.56 have been very enjoyable. But yes, it looks like he's carrying quite a lot of speed. Where Matt's being a little bit more conservative he's getting a better exit, basically, as you say. And we are heading into turn 12 now. That gap's nearly a second. So Matt Daly's been able to walk away a little bit on that back straight, and it looks to be this could be going just the way that Matt Daly wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Daly having an amazing race there, just keeping it tidy, keeping it clean, getting through the traffic as quick as possible. Colin Knief, really unfortunate to have that incident early on in the race, but looks as though he just hasn't been able to do quite enough to put the screws to Matt Daly, as Matt Daly now comes into turn 19 for the last time here at COTA this time around, diving down towards turn 20. He's probably looking behind him thinking, thank heavens for that, the race is over. As he comes towards the line now, Matt Daly, second win of the day. Colin Knief, a very good P2 again for both of these drivers within 0.6 of a second, as it looks as though battling further down the order, Paul Millman and
side heading into turn 11.
Paul Millman and Will Inglis swapping places on the last lap there.
Will Inglis just a little bit braver on the brakes there, as we see Andrew Whitehead crosses the line to take home P3, a very hard-fought podium in the end after a weekend of struggles. He was possibly in it for the win, but I am sure he will be relatively pleased with a podium.
Absolutely. George Battersby, a great fourth place is there to add
very nice weekend for him.
To add to his third place in race 1. He's done very, very well there. As a lot of these drivers have. It's been a very good weekend for a lot of drivers. Andrew Brammer, one of those drivers. Alex Smith doing very well to get those medium tyres through. Rob Whitney taking home the AM lead, the AM win for the race. Very clean race, very tidy race for him there. A little bit of.
I think Alex Smith has had another one of his end of the race finales there.
Yes.
He's found a wall to redecorate his car with.
Absolutely, and Paul Millman and John Baker rounding out the point scoring positions there. Very good racing. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I think you did as well, Reeve. Unfortunately, you couldn't express it quite in the same way that you normally would, with very little left of a voice. But thank you very much for joining us for this doubleheader at COTA. Probably one of the best weekends I've seen for battles with these two drivers at the top there. So thank you very much again for joining us. Hopefully we will be able to catch you again at the next round of this 2021.
In 4 nights' time.
Yeah, in fortnight's time. 2021 Formula Alfa Championship.
See some celebratory donuts there to round us out. And what a nice finish for us there. So we will see you soon.
Bye bye.